Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Today I want to talk to you about how sustainable is your seafood. And how many of you know what is sustainable seafood? Okay, a couple of us. And how many of you, when you go to the grocery store, you look for sustainable seafood certification labels, or when you go to a restaurant, you ask your waiter where your seafood has come from and if it's sustainable? One of us, all right, or two of us. So for the rest of you, and for those of you who already do this, you can help me to emphasize the importance of sustainable seafood. And the rest of you, I'll tell you about why it's important to know about what is sustainable seafood and what we as consumers can do to improve the health of our oceans. So a couple of years ago, I was working in DC for a communications firm, and while there, I was working on a client project with the World Wildlife Fund, the WWF. And we had a couple projects going on with them. One was to work with NOAA, the government agency that regulates our oceans and atmosphere, on fisheries management, which is a huge issue. We also had another project with them that was about seafood certification. So it was to get grocery stores, the suppliers, and nonprofits and certification organizations to all kind of come together to create a more universal certification system and to get along because they all had the same objective, they just were clashing. So one of the things I did daily was just to look at media clips. What are seafood industry trade publications saying? What are their own press releases saying about the certification organizations? And from that, I started to learn about sustainable seafood, because otherwise I had never gone to a grocery store to look for labels, or when going for sushi, I never asked, where is this tuna coming from? So for decades, humans have been fishing in our oceans, and in the past 5 decades, technology has allowed us to fish deeper and further and more efficiently. And as a result, in 2003, the Pew's Ocean Commission warned that the world's oceans are in a state of silent collapse, and that as much as 90% of the large predatory fish, such as shark, swordfish, cod, from the world's oceans have been overfished and removed. And another fact is that 85% of the world's fisheries have been already overfished. So we're at a quite alarming rate. So all of us, we want a future, a healthy ocean for our children and families, so we want to sustain wild, diverse, and healthy ocean ecosystems that will exist long into the future, right? So what can we do about this, and what are the main concerns? Where is our fish coming from? So 2 areas are wild fish and aquaculture, which is fish farming. So with wild fishing, you may not know some of the reasons why we're having problems with even our wild fish population stocks. And that's because mainly it's overfishing issues. We're removing fish faster than fish are reproducing in the ocean. And also there's a lot of illegal fishing, especially in developing countries where regulating fishing is not maybe a top priority because they have many other issues to deal with. And then habitat damage. A lot of times the fishermen who go out and say in a trawler boat will drag up the ocean floor and everything in its path. Or the nets that they use will catch turtles, like you've seen with the dolphin issue with tuna. Because dolphins are cute, people made a big issue, and we no longer are allowed to fish for tuna that capture dolphins, which is the bycatch issues. Basically species getting caught by accident. So as I mentioned before, there was one project with management of fisheries, and some of the problems with management are enforcement, as I've mentioned, not having the proper up-to-date tools or fishing boats and different tools to do fishing, and also just illegal fishing. For example, a lot of shark populations have declined because using the fin is popular in a lot of dishes within Asia. So also some problems with aquaculture that I've learned about are fish farming, and some of you may have heard of this in the news or read about it. Basically it takes So they can be open water farms that you may see out near the coast, or they can have tanks. And so within this, sometimes the fish escape, and we're using antibiotics on these fish, and so they can then mate with a local species, and we don't actually know what the effects of that are to the native populations yet. And then the pollution from these areas, like the feces that are in that area, kill some of the habitat, especially if it's in a mangrove area. So now that I've told you some of these major problems that we're having with our fisheries, you might want to know, what can we do about it? And some of those are to look for when you're in the grocery store, some of the 4 main certification bodies, which is MSC, which is most popular in the United States, and it's been more established. So it just shows a little tag on the seafood in the store that's white with the blue check mark and says MSC. And then Friend of the Sea, which is a competitor, Global Aquaculture Alliance, GAA, and Global GAP. So there's a couple names here, but basically you know that they're making sure that these fisheries and aquaculture farms are looking at sustainable methods for these fish. And then the last thing is the Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch Program, which is down here, and you may have heard of it. And I have some handouts of the Seafood Pocket Guide, which tells you basically fish to avoid, and then fish to, which are okay to buy and to within a restaurant or even within the store. So they also have an app for your iPhone, which I use. So when you next go to order your fish, just make sure to ask your waiter, where is the fish coming from, and use this list to check and see, is it something you should avoid or is it okay? And they have it based on 6 regions within the United States, and it's updated every 6 months. Thank you.